Hey everyone, my name is Kelsey, and I am super excited to be here today with Al, the CEO of Next Health. Now, likely you've probably heard of this company. It is taking the medical industry by storm. In fact, Al was actually selected in 2018 to appear in the edition of Forbes 30 Under 30. And in that short period of time, he has managed to grow Next Health to 25,000 plus different healthcare providers. So I am super excited to be able to pick your brain a little bit to see what's happening, what the plans are for the future. But before we do that, let's just dive right in. First of all, tell us who you are. How did you come up with Next Health?
Yeah, thank you for hosting me, Kelsey, and really excited to be here. The founding story behind Next Health is interesting in the sense that I was actually supposed to go to medical school. I was an undergrad in college, doing the normal things you need to do to get into medical school. And one of those things that you do have to do, which is you have to show that you have some exposure to the field of medicine. So most students they would do like free volunteering or free shadowing or whatever it is, to just get some experience, what it's like being a dentist or being a doctor, whatever it is, you're looking to be. But what I did instead was I got a job at a doctor's office as a receptionist in undergrad. I think my last 2 years of college, and yeah, I was in the Bronx, essentially, making phone calls, taking all the phone calls, calling patients, calling insurance carriers, labs, insurance, etc. And while working there as a receptionist, I was always, obviously like into technology, self-taught developer, etc. And anyway, so while working there as a receptionist, I realized that the patient experience specifically for me, handling all the patients and all the communication, the scheduling, the paperwork, all of it, plus from the patient's point of view as well, was super outdated. I mean, at that time, this is 2015, 2016. At that time, we already had Uber, we already had Lyft and DoorDash and, Netflix, all these other conveniences that we have, throughout our life in other aspects of our lives, right? Just did not exist within a dental office or within a healthcare practice. Anyway, so that's where the inspiration is, the difference between lives that we live as consumers in every other parts of our life versus, what exists today in the dental practice and the healthcare world was so jarring, it's so different, that I decided, look, we should make this easy for everyone. Initially, tried to sort of build this for myself, for my own practice. Didn't think, we were going to start a company around this. Built the initial product, spent some 2 years actually just sort of tinkering with it and doing the research and whatnot. Officially launched in early 2017. Got a few paying customers. And then I would say, 2018, 2019 onwards is when it started really taking off. But anyways, yeah, the experience is, just me working, doing the normal day-to-day job at a doctor's office in the Bronx, seeing all the behind-the-scenes work, plus, obviously as a young consumer of healthcare, seeing the jarring sort of difference between, what we have outside of healthcare and what we have inside of healthcare, really made this seem like a promising solution. And here we are. Yeah, and the hypothesis of bringing modern tools to doctors' offices and consumers is, really starting to pay off. Yeah, today, we have over 25,000 practices. We've raised, some $55 million from some of the best in Silicon Valley, and yeah, seeing, over 350% annual growth rate.
That's awesome to hear. And really, so that's an idea that was born from the trenches. You were there to start with, and that's where it came from. So
exactly.
I know this firsthand, but tell everyone that's listening, how is Next Health changing the the industry?
Yeah, I think the dental industry has a couple of different problems that we're really tracking, and I would say that the most important part is what we like to call data interoperability, and what that really means is that you have some 30, 40, 50 different dental software systems out there like Eaglesoft, Open Dental, Dentrix, OrthoTrack, some obscure ones that you probably never even heard of, like Doxpedo, for example, that we integrate with, or WinOMS that we integrate with. So, anyways, you have a lot of these systems out there that got installed in all of these dental practices, maybe in 2005, 2010, and whatnot, 10 years ago almost. And even to this day, you still have Dentrix and Eaglesoft and all these different players that dominate the market, and they're all great solutions. But the problem is that if you're a tech company, or if you're a startup, or if you're a developer and you're looking to build any sort of solutions for the space, you have to sort of go out there and try to integrate with, some 20, 30, 30, 40 different systems out there. Most of them don't have APIs. Most of them are not open systems. So, think about it this way, right? Like you're a dental office, you just opened your practice, install Let's Say Open Dental, you put all of your patient data in that system, and that's sort of your workflow. And now, you want to go out there and you want to offer your patients better tools for like scheduling, for patient communication, for tracking, and all these different systems. And the problem is that today, if you go out there, you don't really have, really any system out there that's able to, integrate with your Open Dental, Dentrix, Eaglesoft in real time for all the capabilities you need, right? So that includes your patient communication, your online scheduling, your new patient paperwork, really all the end-to-end patient experience, including payments. At scale, you just don't have that one system that can read data from your system of record, like from your Open Dental or your Dentrix or your Eaglesoft or your OrthoTrack, that can read data, but also write data back in real time, meaning in under 30 seconds. So that's sort of the core problem we focused on, which is we built this universal integration solution that's able to read and write data every 30 seconds with every single dental software you can think of out there. So we built that for ourselves, where we built this patient experience product on top of that core technical solution that's able to read and write data between Dentrix and all these different solutions in real time. We built it for ourselves, but now we're also making that technology available to third-party vendors, right? So think about your SmileDirect Club, think about Quip, the toothbrush company, think about TrueLark, and a bunch of these different products you may already be using out there. That's actually now powered by our core technology. The technology that helps us integrate and synchronize data with any sort of dental software is now also powering all these other vendors that you as a dental office may be using, but you just don't know in the back end that it's powered by NextHealth. So I think that's sort of the core solution that we're bringing. Of course, on top of that, the end-to-end patient experience, the end-to-end solution that we're helping doctors acquire more patients, retain their patients, streamline their patient experience. But I think for me personally, the more exciting part is the core technology that we built that powers our own solution, but now it's able to power other solutions as well. And what it's really doing is solving the core problem of this sort of lack of innovation in the space. And I think by making it easy for other developers, other tech companies to be able to integrate with all these dental systems out there, overall accelerates innovation in the whole space.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And like I said, I've seen it in action. I've seen it how it's changing, and it's nice to see that as the dental industry changes rapidly, that there's also technology that's going to be changing at the same speed and or ahead of it, so that you can help with it. Many of us throughout the last year, COVID kind of threw a curveball. It was for many practices, it was a wrecking ball, not just a curveball. So what was the biggest surprise for you last year, and why?
It's a great question. I would say last year, the biggest surprise for me was how many practices thought that they could continue to do what they were doing and still, have a good business. In the sense that, so even today, actually, if you, talk to a DSO or dental practice and whatnot, you'll notice that, a lot of us are trying to go back to 2019 and 2018. And I think, we all need to realize that, all the trends we're seeing in the world today, right? Digitization, all the trends we're seeing in terms of remote work, digitization of all the tools, the Instagrams, the Instacarts, the DoorDashes, the Teslas, all those different trends that are happening across every single industry. That's all being accelerated by 10 years within a 2-year period, right? I mean, COVID took us and said, hey, all these trends that are happening across the world, across the internet, across all technology, let's squeeze that all into a 2-year period. And that's just the reality of it. And I think people haven't fully digested how much the world has changed. And I think all of us, as dental practices, as technology companies, we're all trying to sort of go back to rewind the clock back to 2019, 2018. And yeah, I know that's kind of surprised me, which is most of us haven't seen or are not able to fully digest that the world has changed. And it's really different today. Consumer expectations are different. The technology we're using is different. The vendors are different. All of it is different. And if we're not keeping up with the trends, we're either going to get acquired by some private equity firm or go out of business. And the resistance to it, to this day still is, I would say, what surprised me so far. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, we need to stop crawling back into our comfort zone for sure. That's where we're comfortable, but growth is always made outside of that zone.
Exactly.
So, Al, I want you to kind of put on your crystal ball glasses. We're going to try to predict or see the future. So where do you see the industry going in the next 12 to 24 months? What kind of changes do you foresee?
It's a great question. I think there's going to be, in the dental industry specifically, I think there's two breeds of practices or ways of running a business that we're going to see. And these are trends that are already in place, but I think it's just being accelerated. And overall, I think the main trend that's driving all of this is just consumerization of dental care or healthcare in general. What that really means is that as consumers, we're used to a certain way of living today, through all the technology that we have everywhere else, right? And young people, millennials, by the way, are in their 40s today. Millennials that grew up with the internet, and that's all they know, and that's all we know, right? Millennials have kids today; they're spending the most money. So this millennial user base, we just have really different expectation of the world than our parents did and everyone else did, and we're bringing those expectations to dental care, to healthcare, and that's driving, I think, two changes. One is, you will have every single practice today needing to update their business models, meaning we can't rely on the insurance carriers anymore to drive business to us. We can't really rely on the old ways of sending mailers to patients, or just putting up a sign on a door that says dentist on it and be able to acquire patients. Millennials really have different expectations, where they expect modern care. They expect even better bedside manner. They expect a really nice, sleek, clean office with no wait time. They expect digital tools that enables them to book appointments in real time, communicate with their doctors, pay through their phones. Really everything just being done online and through their phones. And that's a really, really big shift for a lot of practices out there. So overall, there's going to be two trends, I think. But the first trend is that most practices, especially the ones that's been in business for the last 30 years or so, most practices, I think, will be resistant to that change. And then overall, what will happen is that their revenue will keep on declining, and they'll get bought out by some DSO or some private equity firm. So that trend, I think, is already actually accelerating, where a lot of practices are getting bought out by DSOs and private equity firms. And then I think, on the other extreme, you'll have what I call entrepreneurs who just happens to be dentists, right? Meaning, entrepreneurs that come into the space that are just happen to be dentists, that act like tech founders, tech entrepreneurs. They come in, they rebuild their office into a sleek, modern office. They adopt all the tools that they need to adopt to serve their patients. They come in and they give their patients exactly what they want. So I think you will have those two trends, which the sort of older, slower, less modern, but owned by some private equity firm conglomerate. At that point, it's really just a business, and then you'll have the more modern, single owner, or maybe owns a couple of practices. Really sleek, really nice website, really nice patient experience, and you have real-time scheduling, you have real-time payments. You have this really nice office with modern views. Really, everything being sleek and modern and whatnot. So, anyways, I think you will have those two, which is private equity owned versus entrepreneurs who just happens to be dentists. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, no, I think it does make sense. And just going back to what you were saying with the millennials, convenience is another huge thing. Everyone wants to be able to do it now. They want their answer now. They want their bookings now. They want their appointments now. They want the reminders now. So definitely seeing that kind of becoming more mainstream as well in the next couple of years for sure.
Yeah. And, the funny thing is I just bought a Tesla recently, and now I can't go back to a gas car because of just the sheer convenience. I have my phone in my pocket. I get into the car, I hit the brake pedal, and I'm off and out, right? Versus, a normal car, you have to, fiddle with your keys. You have to get in, you have to press the thing, and then you have to the gear, all those things, right? I can't do that anymore. Even if I try these days, it's so jarring for my brain. I almost got into an accident the other day because with the Tesla, it's just so much more convenient versus a gas car. So I think that's sort of the way the world is headed, and going from the earlier point, which is all the convenience that we have all across our lives today, to a dental practice, to a healthcare practice, and that sheer sort of difference in the experience is I think jarring for a lot of patients, and the providers and the doctors that can live up to that expectation is the future.
For sure. And I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, you're a busy person. I mean, you know that you're running a company, you're scaling, you're growing rapidly. So how do you stay on top of things? How do you keep up to date with things within your role? How do you continue to learn?
That is an amazing question. I think the fundamental thing that I've come to learn, and I think most of our customers that are the best smarter than you are in their specific area, and you have to be humble enough to be able to ask a lot of questions and learn as quickly as possible. So we're out of San Francisco, the Bay Area, and some of the smartest tech people live there. And our executive team makes up people that comes from early days of Netflix, that comes from early days of some of the best companies in the world today. And then our investors also include some of the early backers in companies like Uber, some of the early backers in companies like DoorDash and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, what I would say is surround yourself with the people that you can learn a lot from. And if you don't feel challenged intellectually by those people, then you just need to change your circle and to upgrade your team or whatever it is you need to do. Yeah, and once you do surround yourself with those people, I think you have to be self-aware that they may know more than you do, and you have to ask a lot of questions. You have to push them and push yourself to stay updated. So that's one way, I would say, which is surround yourself with the right people. And the second way is, I think you always have to make some time and you have to make some room, no matter how busy you are, to just read. I travel back and forth a lot between San Francisco and New York, which is about a 6-hour flight. And I would say I spend most of that 6-hour flight just reading. If you don't read a lot, and if you don't keep up with your knowledge, the world around you, it's going to bypass you completely, and you'll just be left behind. So read a lot and surround yourself with the right people. Yeah, it sounds simple, but it's a lot harder too. But that's what's worked for me so far. Yeah.
There we go. Simple but solid advice for sure. I got one last question for you, Al. Is there any updates or any news that is coming down the pipeline that you want to share about NextHealth?
News or update about NextHealth? That's a great question. Yeah, I would say we have a bunch of partnerships coming up, and a new product that's coming up that we'll be announcing in the next couple of weeks. That includes partnerships with companies like Smile Direct Club, with Quip, with a few of these other companies out there, which will help our customers get more visibility. Meaning, if you look at the world of the internet today, millennials today, right? If for example, if I'm 23 or 24 or 25 and I'm looking to get, let's say, teeth aligners, right? I know I have some problems and I need to get it fixed, right? A company like Smile Direct Club has such a huge brand that if I'm a young person and I'm looking to just get care for my teeth, and the first thing I'll typically do is go to SmileDirectClub.com and fill out their simple questionnaire and try to figure it out. And one of the things that they're doing now that I think is super smart, which is that about 50% of their patients, they realize that the case is either too complex, or maybe they're in a state or in some regulatory area where they can't treat the patient online. So what they do is they want to be able to send that patient to a real dentist that they partner with somewhere in the patient's local area, and then send that patient to that dentist. And what we're doing with Smile Direct Club is that we're making our customers available to be a part of their network, so that if I'm a consumer, if I'm looking to get teeth aligners and I actually need to go and see a real dentist, we're making our customers available on their site. So I would say some of these partnerships, and similar partnership includes with Quip and a few other companies that we'll be announcing soon, that will help our customers acquire more patients, get more visibility, and be on the sites and the platforms where modern millennials go to find care. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to see those roll out. As I've said in the past, I've been able to work from the marketing perspective on that end of it and see how NextHealth is able to help practices. But then we also work directly with the practice itself, so I can see it from both sides. How that solution not only increases these conversions, but also makes it a lot easier to track that conversion.
Yeah.
So Al, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a privilege being able to pick your brain, kind of seeing what's happening, what's coming down the pipeline. I know we're going to drop a link into the chat here where we can drop off any of anyone's wanting a free trial. They want to give NextHealth a try, or would like just to ask some questions. Maybe they wanted to, see how it works. We're going to put that in. So feel free to use that link and get in touch with Al and his team.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Kelsey.
Thank you, Al.
Yep. Bye-bye.